Good morning, River Rocks Church. Hope everyone's having a great morning so far. My name's Trent. I'll be in the scripture with you this morning. We're going to be in Mark chapter 4, verses 33 through 38. Let's go ahead and get started with verse 33 and 34. It says, "And with many such parables he spoke the word to them as they were able to hear it. But without a parable he did not speak to them. And when they were alone, he explained all things to his disciples." So we can understand, if we've been listening to the last few morning devotionals, Jesus has been giving a multitude of parables to the people at the edge of the Sea of Galilee, teaching them the ways of the Lord. Now, we all know that the parables don't always make sense at face value. What this verse is specifically saying is Jesus is using the parables to draw people in to be able to hear the words that he's saying. And when they walk away, they might not have 100% explanation, but those who choose to follow him, his disciples, get a further explanation. Now, that doesn't mean that Jesus lets those people who hear the parables walk away with absolutely no understanding. He does go into detail to explain those things, but for the disciples, he ensures they have a better understanding. Why? Because it's important for them to be able to explain those same parables when they go out to teach people. They're going to use and mimic the words of Christ to be able to spread the gospel. And this was the way to do it, to be able to use an example that made sense to the people. And if it didn't, it at least drew them in to want to listen. That was the goal. We're going to jump into 35 through 38 now. 35 says, "On the same day when evening had come, he said to them, 'Let us cross over the other side.' Now, when they had left the multitude, they took him along in the boat as he was, and other little boats were also with him." So now we see a transition. The disciples and Jesus are going from the edge of the Sea of Galilee onto a boat into the Sea of Galilee. We can see by context, it's Christ that says, "Let us cross to the other side." It's not the disciples' choice, but rather Jesus specifically saying this, which is important when we get to the next part. And we also see that there's multiple boats. It's not just Jesus and his boat. It's not just Jesus and the disciples gathered in the Sea of Galilee, and that's it. But the multitude is leaving the area they were just being taught at. So many people who just heard the words of Christ are leaving with Jesus in a separate boat. Verse 37, "And a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that it was already filling. But he was in a stern, asleep on a pillow. And they awoke him and said to him, 'Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?'" We see that a storm came, that as the disciples and the multitude were leaving the area of the edge of Galilee, that a storm arose so bad to which the boat was filling with water. The boat began to sink. And many times in our own life, we can see that we have trials, we have things that come up, we have hard days, that it feels like our boat is sinking, and it feels like we're going down or we're drowning, and we'll never find a way out of it. But we can understand first and foremost who put them on that water, who told them to cross that water. It was Jesus. Jesus wanted them to go through and cross that water. Now, with as omniscient as Jesus is, we can understand and we know that he knew what was going to happen. He understood that a storm was going to come, but he still told those disciples, "Go cross over the Sea of Galilee." But why? It was a test of faith. Now, you'll hear the rest of the story as we go through another morning devotional, but what I want you to hear today is, where do you sit? When a storm arises, are you asking that same question to Jesus? You're filling with water. You're drowning. The days are getting hard. Are you asking, "Teacher, where are you? Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? God, do you not care that I'm drowning?" It's a hard question, but the reality is that we know that Christ cares abundantly, more so than we can ever imagine, and that many times what we're facing and what's in front of us can actually be what he is putting in front of us to see where our obedience lies and to make us dependent on the Lord. And it is such a glorious thing when we go through those trials, we go through the sinking ship, so that we can come out the other side and say, "That's what Jesus did for me. And I was able to get through it, not by my own strength, but by the strength of the Lord and by leaning onto him without my own understanding." I pray that gives you encouragement this morning. Hope you have a great week. And remember, if you're asking these questions, seek after the Lord. He'll be able to get your ship above the water. He'll be able to get your week better and be able to have you pointing to the light. Doesn't mean you're not going to have bad days, but it means that your bad days are with the Lord, which is a great thing. Hope you have a great week.